everyone, and welcome to a new video interview for Jogonet Gaming News. Today we are joined by Grant Johnson, CEO of Esports Entertainment Group. The company has recently launched its esports betting platform in New Jersey, becoming the first operator to begin full esports betting operations in the Garden State. So we will be discussing the key points of this landmark event. Thank you for joining us today, Grant.
Thank you for having me, Rodrigo. Pleased to be here.
So, as I was saying, the company has now launched its esports betting platform in New Jersey, a first for this state. What can you tell us about this achievement, and what opportunities do you see it opening for the group?
Well, yes, getting through the process, the regulatory process, to be the first and currently the only licensed esports gambling site in the American market had its own challenges. You know, when you're first doing anything, it's always a little bit more difficult. However, I certainly prefer to lead rather than follow. So you take your chances when you're first. New Jersey has been an innovator in online gambling. They led the charge to get online Sportsbook approved, and that's changed everything in the gambling market, of course. So they're very progressive in their thinking, and no different in the esports category. The governor's gone on record, Stockton University, the DGE. So thankfully, they had that commitment to getting through the process, because there was a lot of things we learned along the way that we didn't expect. We thought we would have been out of soft play a little earlier, but it's the end justifies the means, right? We got through, we're up. What does that mean for us? Well, I think it proves to the market that we're a credible, legitimate operator. We have now 5 Tier 1 licenses, but more importantly for the American market, we have a US license. Has that opened other opportunities? Yes, we've had many conversations and calls from other groups in other states. If we'd be interested in there. We've presented and participated in the state of Ohio. We were instrumental in getting esports added to their regulatory framework. We have excellent partners in the state of Ohio. There's other states we're talking to. So yeah, it really opened the door for us. We'll now have an opportunity to, market unrestricted in the state of New Jersey. And we'll be able to create accurate financial modeling for what does esports gambling look like, because nobody really knows. We all believe, and we've all done some modeling. There's a lot of gray market activity that takes place. We all remember the story of CSGO Lounge, etc. So we know there's demand, but we don't know how big it is. We will know that now. Also in the state of New Jersey, we had an inaugural launch of our skill betting platform, player versus player. So that's a different product altogether, but we still took that product and got it tested by the Gaming Commission to make sure that it met all the high standards and criteria of being able to work with gambling operations like land-based casinos. So I think the big wins for us were credibility, being first, and having the opportunity to really get some accurate financial data on how big this opportunity is. We think it's huge, obviously, or we wouldn't have done this.
Right. So now going to the specifics of this new product, what are the main features of this sportsbook, and what options does it give to users?
Well, the esports book functions functions the same as a sports book. The software platform is the same. So, it's kind of a bid and an ask to be over under. There's a handicapping system. We work with Auden is our lines provider. We've had some of the publishers in direct conversation with the DGE, which is why we're able to add a Call of Duty and Overwatch League to the mix. We do know that the games like Madden, FIFA, 2K are very popular in the market in the United States. So we're looking to add additional titles. And again, being first, being there, having made it through, makes us more credible and attractive to the publishers as well. They don't want to take a chance with their brand. They can't afford to. Well, they can probably afford to, but they don't have any need to take any chances. If they're going to do something in gaming, they want to make sure they're dealing with a transparent, credible operator. So what it'll allow us to do is see which titles are most popular with the American gambler. We do know in the Asian market that the League of Legends and Dota tend to trend higher. We know in the European markets, CS:GO is absolutely the biggest game in terms of participation for gambling, and we're going to learn that which is the biggest titles in the North American market with this site. So, but to get to your question succinctly, it functions the same as an esports site. There's you'll have your handicap, you'll have your over under, and this will allow for the first time fans of esports to bet on their favorite games, their favorite players, their favorite teams in live tournaments in the United States. Now, in the States, the licenses are geofenced, which what that means is anybody, as long as they're in the state of New Jersey, can place a bet. They can open up an account. So if you live in New York and you take the train in to New Jersey, which I've been at Penn Station on game day, clearly tens of thousands of people do just this. They place their bets, and then they can either go to Hoboken and hit a pub, or they head back into Manhattan. And Jersey is unique because it has Philadelphia in the south and New York in the north. So not only is it the 11th biggest state by population, it has the benefit of being geographically desirable because those two big markets are right there, and there's a lot of avid fans, which we found a couple weeks back in Atlantic City. So we're going to be able to open the market up to we believe it was a pent-up demand. There are a lot of gray market bettors right now. We believe that given the choice of a credible site, we believe that a substantial number of those people would rather deal with a licensed, credible site that is protecting them because they've got the DGE, they got the SEC, they got a lot of overwatch, to use a gaming phraseology, looking up for their best interests. And we're a white hat operator, so that's important. Because it is a sports book license, we will probably in the future bring our sportsbook platform in as well. But we'll be esports first with a sportsbook extension versus what you see today is sportsbooks have their product first, and they'll offer a couple line extensions on some Dota and League of Legends. But if you probably know, you look like you're probably a gamer, you wouldn't go to 365 to find out what's going on with Dota or League of Legends. And 365 is a fantastic site. DraftKings, excellent operator, but you would not necessarily go there to find out what's happening in esports. So we're going to take a different approach. Esports first. Right. Sports will be the line extension for us.
So you have briefly mentioned about this in regards to other states possibly opening up their new regulated markets going forward. But what I wanted to know is specifically what impact do you expect this historic launch in New Jersey and the growing interest in esports betting to have in these other states? Do you think they will be paying attention to this and taking notes from what is happening there?
100%. Yes, that's the answer there. We've already had some regulatory bodies from other states reach out to us to ask us if we would come sit on advisory boards, come and testify at hearings as they're exploring what does esports look like. Should it be added to the sports gaming regulatory framework? As I said, our CFO and our head of strategy presented twice in Ohio. We were invited to present in front of the Senate. So it is by being recognized by one of the leaders in sportsbook and esports book, that puts us above our peers. When these regulatory bodies are considering adding esports, they reach out to us. So we've had, currently three other states have reached out to us, regulators in those states. And that's we expect more of that going forward. So
Right.
we do expect expand. Excuse me.
There is one in particular that I wanted to ask you about, because if we are talking about a big gaming state, we must mention Nevada. So last month, the Esports Technical Advisory Committee had its first meeting. I wanted to know if you were able to, yes, to see what this implies, and if you can tell me what role do you expect this new entity to play?
Yeah, we actually one of our staff members, our head of strategy, presented at that meeting. So we were invited to present. So yeah, we recognized obviously Las Vegas is hands down the biggest location for it's the mecca of gaming in the North American market, most definitely. So it is a key market, it is a key state for it. And yes, it factors very heavily in our future plans. That's about as specific as I can get for you right now.
Right. And well, in regards to other potential markets, perhaps also outside the US, I remember that in our last conversation, which was actually in November, you mentioned the opportunity of expanding to Ontario. Can you tell us about this market in particular, and perhaps some others where the company is looking at opportunities?
Yeah, in fact, I was at the Sigma conference this past Monday, Sigma dinner, which was celebrating the start of gambling here in Ontario. And I received a medal because being recognized as the oldest participant in the online, which isn't necessarily an award you're really thrilled to get. But I had been involved with trying to get the government to tax and regulate gaming back in the 90s. So it didn't go forward at that time, but my efforts from back then were recognized at the soiree. Yeah, it's a big market. It's where I live, so clearly, as far as the Canadian market's concerned, I believe it is the most important market in Canada. Right now, given that we just launched in New Jersey, we're just getting our feet under ourselves there. But of course, Ontario would be, from the Canadian market, would be the most important market for us to look at, most definitely.
Now, we have talked quite a bit about New Jersey, but I wanted to ask you, because it's also a landmark achievement, the first sanctioned skill-based wagering event, which you held in along with Hard Rock Atlantic City. So what would be your main takeaways from this event, and what was the reception of the new LandDuel platform like?
Well, there was a lot of very encouraging takeaways. Number one, what we learned is that the gamers want this type of product.
Right.
So it's an easy product to understand. I'm going to play you, Rodrigo. We're going to play Madden. We're going to bet $25. That's simple. I get it. I don't have to understand the over/under. What's the spread? I'm not betting on somebody. It's not a gambling product. It's a betting product. So it's regulated differently. It's an 18+ product. You don't need a gambling license. You do have to have a legal opinion. We took a little bit extra step because we felt that this finally was a product that casino operators would find interesting to bring gaming into their casinos.
Right.
Like a poker room, same concept. And what we learned at the event was the players will come. They came. We had 400 people sign up immediately to come out to the event. Now, unfortunately, we also didn't recognize when we moved it to account for the Omicron virus coming through the early part of the year. We pushed it out a couple of months, working with the Hard Rock. And the weekend we picked was, I think we were in the Sweet 16 and the Final Four in March Madness. Now, what we learned was that, being a huge sporting event very close to some cities that had huge colleges that were participating. All the hotel rooms were booked up in Atlantic City. Great for Atlantic City, but it made it difficult for some gamers drove in from Ohio to participate. So that was a logistical challenge that was difficult to overcome. So we wouldn't necessarily try to go head to head with the biggest, college sporting event again until we're much bigger, more established. But the players liked it. The only complaint the players had, and we got a lot of media on this, was that they felt that they didn't like being restricted to only being able to bet $25 a match. Now, that surprised us in a positive way, of course, because as a gaming and gambling and betting company, you want to be able to allow the players to bet what they want. We felt and worked with the DGE that it was prudent to sort of cap it at $25 initially, just so that we got a better feel for what was going on. Players didn't have to bet on themselves, by the way. They're playing in a tournament. The betting was optional all the way through. So we limited to 25. Some of the players tried to make $500 side bets, but it was a regulated event in the casino. So, and the DGE was present. So, clearly that we couldn't allow that, but we were encouraged that there was an appetite for that. What was more important for us, specifically because of that, is the casinos saw there was an appetite for that. We'd invited 8 casino operators down to come see the event and then have a meeting with us, talk about the product. So the operators saw for themselves that this was a product that was interesting to the under 30 crowd. The game, they're not getting this crowd now it's not tracking. And they've been trying to figure out how they get that younger demographic into their physical plans, because it's not just betting. They stay in hotel rooms, they buy food, they buy beverages, they watch a show. There's a lot of economic trickle down elements to having this very lucrative demographic in their casinos. So they saw it firsthand. So of the 8 casinos that came out, all 8 operators want to follow up. That was very encouraging. So the big takeaway was players loved it, and they would drive from as far away as Ohio to participate in Atlantic City. That showed commitment to me. They want to bet. In fact, their only frustration was we weren't letting them bet enough. That's a good takeaway. The casino operators saw this appealed to the demographic they've been trying to figure out how to get in their physical plan. So it achieved 100% of our objective, really. We're very excited about the next steps.
So exactly, next steps. So I don't know if it is too early to ask, but can you tell us about perhaps future opportunities for the LandDuel platform and new integrations with the casino or in general?
Yeah, I can. Number one, just for clarification, LandDuel, it was called LandDuel when we acquired it. It used, Genji had developed the product. William Collis and Paul Gavin are the 2, architects behind the platform, and they designed an excellent platform along with their team, of course. When we acquired it, was LandDuel, and the name LandDuel was land for land centers, because of the gaming centers, and then Duel. We're going to be modifying that name to be more in our rebranding to be consistent with either EEG, Vi, or EGL, which are our 3 main brands. So a new name is going to be coming out. We'll probably roll that out at the NIGA conference, which is the Tribal Gaming Conference, coming up the 19th in Anaheim. So that's going to be where we're next showcasing the product. That's the immediate next step. While that's taking place, we are following up with the operators who came. They wanted to see some of the mathematics, what this looks like on the economic side. If they had a 40 station gaming room, an 80 station, 100 station gaming room, and just sort of walk through how quickly that could be installed, and how quickly could they get trained and operational, et cetera. So we're having those presentations right now. I would say our objective is to have a casino agreement in place before the fall. That's our internal objective. I'm not saying that there's a contract on the table. There isn't as of today's date, but that's our internal objective here.
Perfect. So, well, in order to close the interview, I would like to know what's your take on the future of the industry? Well, we have been discussing that throughout all this time, right? But I remember that in our last interview, you said that you expected that in 10 or 15 years, esports betting to become as big as sports betting. Do you still believe this will happen? And what role do you expect the company to play in this future, given how early it reached the market?
Well, to your first question, yes, I believe it will get on the same par as sports betting. It's going to take some time, and the reason it'll take some time, I know there was some fairly wild numbers being thrown around the last couple of years. How big is esport betting? And nobody really knew, and still nobody really knows. We'll have some hard numbers to work with here over the rest of this calendar year, and then we'll be able to start building some accurate models. That said, if we look back in time, 5 years ago, how many universities had esports teams? Zero. There's none. Only that the students started themselves. And now you have over 200 institutions of higher learning that have esports, varsity teams. They have intercollegiate teams. Approximately 100 of those schools have scholarship programs. You go even further downstream, the high schools now have esports and gaming rooms. So that's the critical path. That's the ecosystem that's going to build the industry. As those gamers and the fans of those gamers get older and they grow up and they graduate, they get jobs, they have more disposable income. That's when esports is going to start to get on par with Sportsbook. Do I think it's 2 years? Not a chance. Do I think 10 years? Maybe. 15 starts to get more realistic, possibly as long as 20, but it's going to happen. I mean, the gaming industry is already bigger than music and movies. So it's already got a huge footprint. There's 3.5 billion people that are consider themselves gamers, the Xbox, PlayStation, mobile on their desktop. So it's a massive audience. They just have to get comfortable and used to, following certain teams that have some relevance to them. Because right now the big teams are made up of global players. They come in, they're not necessarily stationed in the city. And we're starting to see more leagues stationed in cities with more structure to those leagues. And we're starting to see the college graduates, the college and university teams with the student body that follows those teams. So it's a whole system that has to grow. You can't just magically go, boom, esports gambling's here. And all of a sudden, a billion people are going to sign up. It's not going to work like that. It has to kind of mature as the audience matures. So it'll get there. I believe in that. I think most people who would be sitting in my chair would feel the same way. Of course, clearly we're committed to it. I think the faster moving product though will be the skill-based, the player versus player product. I think that'll get there more quickly. But both are key elements to what will make for a healthy industry. And we have the pole position on both. We're the first for the esports gambling license, and we're the first with a player versus player betting platform that's been approved by a recognized regulatory body. So.
Well, thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking with you. So, hope to have you back in the future.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks for having me. Sorry that it gets kind of windy on some of those responses, but there's, sometimes they need a little bit of further explanation.
Thank you.